Let's get started. Welcome to Tank Top DM, where I talk about tank tops and I wear Dungeons and Dragons. Get a good little pump. Oh, welcome to the gym. This whole channel is all about making sure that you can run a pretty viable Dungeons and Dragons campaign without doing too much work. It's for the people who don't want to read the book, don't want to buy the book, don't know how to read. All three of them hit me. So if all three of those hit you, might as well just keep watching and let me do all the work for you, baby. I've already ran this campaign a few years ago successfully. Everyone was happy with the ending, or at least I've been told. So hopefully I can do you guys some justice. And check this out. I don't know if you saw my first video, but I got like a thing going on, like an overlay, so I don't get lost in translation. Last time I talked about like The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson and stuff like that. But now I got pictures of like all kinds of stuff using PowerPoint. I love it. Okay. So today, what are we going to be talking about? We're not going to be talking about player's handbook stuff. We're not going to be talking about how to min-max or anything like that. We're going to be talking about Chapter 2, as I said earlier. Chapter 2 is insanely difficult to DM, only because the book gives you so much, but it's kind of like a basket of Legos, and instead of pure instructions, it's just a bunch of recommendations. And that could be incredibly tedious, especially for a first-time DM. I remember when I played Phandalin, Lost Mine is a Phandalin in the starter set, and you can basically just go page to page, and honestly, as long as you read the whole thing, you'd be fine. But this thing is definitely like, I gotta sit down and put this all together, which again, is what I'm gonna do here. So let's go over the outline. Today's topics are the travel vibe, what your character should be feeling as they're moving about. Where the character's going, right? Again, the Underdark is just miles and miles of random ass, left and right, turns up and down, it's cats and dogs living together, it's just pure chaos. So the characters need a place to go. If they wander without a character or some sort of guide, of course you're not going to kill them, but you're going to have to find some way to get them to their destination or somewhere. You know, randomly walking around shouldn't be played as, oh, they, you know, maybe one session they just went left and right and ran into a city. The Underdark is, again, like a continent, and there's so much deadly crap in there. You really want to give your players a good incentive to stick to a main road, especially at level 2 or level 3. Maybe by the end of this chapter, by the time, if you use like some sort of milestone system, I would get your characters level 4 the moment they got to their first village of choice. Again, I'll go over those village locations in just a second. So we're also going to go over travel pace and filling in the void. What do I mean by that? There's so much kind of dead air in this chapter, and I'll go into it when I go cover that part. And what I mean by like this dead air is that the book has you rolling randomly for tables for rolling random tables for encounters all the time. And if you don't know what I'm saying at all, the book offers like, hey, these are 10 things that could happen, and if you want them to be random, you roll a d10, a d10 being a dice with 10 sides, until you'll eventually, like, you know, you hit a 6, and then you look at the table, and I have a table up there, we'll get there, and you basically plug in whatever the book is offering you. You can do that, but honestly, I don't think it's fun. I don't think I mean, let's say you run 3 sessions and you hit the number 3 times. Are you gonna run the same encounter 3 times in a row? No. You're gonna pick a different one. So if you're already fudging crap, you might as well make it all up, right? That's what Dungeons and Dragons is. I'm going to go into phasers expanded. Earlier I talked about, in my first video, I talked about what it is, kind of like this vibe, but not any real mechanics. I'll go into that, as well as the madness mechanics that pollute this game. The Drow pursuits, because they should be following your players for at least a third of the campaign. Fungus and filler encounters. The game offers a whole bunch of mushrooms that can be utilized for eating, for rations. Honestly, I would recommend that if you think, if you think you're more of this is very realistic and I want to be immersive and the players have to, you know, you're someone who does like carry weight or any of that really boring stuff, you might love that. I'll go through most of the mushrooms and some cool effects that they could have, but I don't necessarily use them. Once we got to the first village, my party basically stocked up for good. And in the filler encounters, one of the things that could happen is your character's food spoils, right? So you can kind of force them into having to go picking for mushrooms, but honestly, that doesn't sound like fun. So let's keep going. The cool encounters. So chapter 2 offers 4 encounters outside of really random stuff. Right. The filler encounters are things like your characters come across a bridge, your characters come across some sort of rocky terrain. Maybe, you know, 3 orcs, maybe 3 this, maybe 3 that. Again, I'm not a fan of that. I like to script out my events, not exactly railroad them, but have almost triggers for something better. Because again, you can probably have fun, but what's 3 hours of combat of fighting, you know, a bunch of spiders that, you know, your characters won't remember that. You want to at least spruce it up a little bit, and I have just the way to do that. How to make any of these random encounters 1,000 times better just by putting a few things together. Right, filler encounters, they're pretty boring. The cool encounters, they're rad as hell. They're basically all mini one-shots. They could definitely take a whole session, maybe 2 if you run with my party and they're like, you know, inspecting the dust and trying to like just to argue about dumb stuff, how many spell slots they are, how long their spell slots are, how and start whipping them out. And it's just, it takes too much time. Then I'm going to go into how the book wants you to run it, kind of like just like a plain overview of how the chapter, how these sessions in between should go, and then how I ran it, which again is a Twitch exclusive. I'm not going to be talking about that in the YouTube. So the way that the book runs it, I want to touch on that really quick. The reason why chapter 2 is what I believe to be one of the most important chapters is because every time your characters are moving from place to place to place, actually this is a good way to, or this is a good transitional kind of piece, right? On the travel time, I'll talk about the mood, the travel time, what it means, and why the chapter is important. Oh wow, there you go. It's like I fucking put it together. What was I saying? Travel time. Right. So sometimes the book can be like, hey, from wherever you are, there's actually going to be a list. You know what? I'm sure I can even find it. All right, let me show you. Velkenvelv. We learned what Velkenvelv was in my last video. Go click on that crap if you didn't watch it. But from Velkenvelv, the book will tell you how far or how many days it takes to get to each city. Now, again, this seems kind of boring, but this is important because the book doesn't necessarily help you here. So let's say 0 days to get from Velkenvelv to get to Velkenvelv. Fuck, obviously. Why did I even say that out loud? 26 days from Velkenvelv to Menzoberranzan. From... Oh, silly me. I thought this was like the whole thing. But you can kind of see, these are the numbers I needed on the screen right now. 8 days to get to Shroop to Velkenvelv, right? And that's what our characters should be, or our players should be heading that way anyway. If they listen to what I said earlier, Shusher should tell the characters that they should head to Sloop, as it's the closest place, and honestly, your characters probably don't have a lot of equipment on them, so it's a good idea to head to the nearest post where at least your characters can do bartering, you know, all the cool stuff, you know, doing jobs and missions for money, and definitely not what my characters do, which is steal and kill. Why are these days important? Well, it's because they can go up to 28, 26 days, right? So what does that mean? Paul, you keep fucking saying that. What are you trying to tell me? Well, this is what I want to tell you. The game has a random loot table. 4 encounters, as I said earlier. Stuff like, oh, they have the terrain slippery. I'm going to read this out loud, right? This is rolling 14 to a 15 on a d20 for an encounter. Terrain, slippery and oily. What does that mean? What am I supposed to do with that? I'm not that great of a DM to be able to be like, I would advise from letting your players I would keep them as frictionful as possible. The less slippery, the better. But the point is that every day you that goes by, you are supposed to, by recommendation of the book, roll on this table every single day. So if your characters are passing by 8 days, fine, you know, 8 encounters. Maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe they'll be fun. Maybe one day it'll be spiders, and maybe one day it'll be they pass by like a little skeleton. I mean, some of these are cool. Like I'm saying that, I'm talking about it like it's all shit. One of them is like a boneyard, right? And then you can introduce whatever bone monsters you want to do. You can make a layout of whatever kind of bone map. I gotta be careful with my pronunciation. When you do that to 36 days, Menzoberranzan straight to Velkenvelv 24 days, or yeah, 26 days. How many times are you going to roll on that thing? How many times are you going to make it fresh? By the time your characters are doing that, and that's 26 days. Let's say you do a week a session. That's 4 sessions of random loot table straight. That's horrible. And even if you start spicing things up, right? Like, oh, we will have giant spiders get all slippery on the oily terrain, and now all characters are like, difficult terrain and wet and, disadvantage on strength checks, I guess. But like, that's not that fun. And I'm about to lose half of the views I have. So I'm about to go from a whopping 4 all the way down to 2 when I admit this. I do not like random tables at all. I take what the information gives you, like the content, right? Because some of them's good, like a boneyard or a purple worm encounter, right? I'm not going to assign any number to it. What I'll do instead is plan my entire session out. Now, again, for me to be able to do that, oh, old guy, DM, welcome! The problem is when you're in the Underdark, and this is different for a lot of different campaigns, but in the Underdark, when you have to follow your set tunnel left and right, you have to start and spice it up and come up with some sort of fun and plan it ahead, because it's going to be the same thing again and again. And that's why if you look up a lot of reviews for Out of the Abyss, everyone's biggest problem is the traveling in between cities, because it is just this kind of wasteland, right? Star-Lord Special says, I think it's always a good idea to prep the random tables ahead of time and make sure that they're relevant to the current plot points or foreshadow the future plot points. Yes, absolutely. That is huge. That's huge. And that's why as we go in and we get to some of those plot points and some of those encounters, I'm going to tell you specifically which ones to do in what order as a recommendation. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not a cop. And all of those points, all the creative little loot encounters I've created specifically foreshadow, right? They always had a point, just like the NPCs. Well, before I go into the NPCs, which is coming up next, because we still got to figure out where the fuck our characters are going. I just swore. I'm so sorry. I'm going to keep swearing. I censored some of the words. I'm not sure why I did that. The vibe, right? The vibe. At first, your vibe should change throughout the campaign. At first, actually, as a matter of fact, there should be 2 entirely different vibes of traveling between the first, we called it the season, which is where your characters are still in the Underdark and they just leave or get onto the surface. And then the second season, which is when they go back into the surface. The first vibe should be persistence. It should be not persistence on their part, just the opposite, agony, running away. Just it's just this hopeless sprint. That's what the first vibe should be. Your characters should be trying to survive at every point. Your characters know they're being pursued by the Drow, and they're relentless. Elvara, as I mentioned in the last episode, the Drow priestess who's in charge, is never going to give up. She would rather die. And as a matter of fact, that might be where her kind of train takes its last stop. That's a good slogan. You guys can put that on a shirt. I think honestly, even if you want to create a table, it's a good idea to pick and then homebrew your own encounters and almost make your own table, one that's more preferred. There's about 7 things I'm not going to use from the book because again, they're just slippery things, and again, keep them from being as viscous as possible. It never leads to a good thing. But I'll take out all that boring stuff, the shit that makes my character slippery, the shit that's boring, the shit that's, whatever. And again, being a gym bro, I don't think that, scenic encounters are boring. I don't think having a conversation with someone, a resident of the Underdark, maybe someone who's wiser, talk about the dangers and yet the beauty, right? The Fungus, just being able to, having a scene where you admire how alien this world can be, that's the type of stuff I really like, right? Like the world building, having your characters experience this like through their players and from you, that's incredibly important. So I only take out the stuff that I necessarily think will probably slow down, will not add anything in the story, and slow down the pace for no good reason, right? Your characters will need to travel. Where are they going? Oh, look at that. That's a Demogorgon. Kind of. Oh, yeah. That's a Demogorgon. I'm going to pull this up a little bit further. You guys remember these characters I told you about? Old Guy DM says, I am cutting and pasting bits and pieces from my modules for my new homebrew campaign. We'll be using parts of Out of the Abyss as a final arc. If it lasts that long, we'll be trying to steal the Wand of Orcus. Baby, oh my god, the Wand of Orcus is insane, and I don't want to get off. I'm going to probably cut this off. Wand of Orcus has such a rad, and you probably know this, where if your character picks it up for the first time, there is a chance that they will literally die. Like, there's a really genuine chance that just upon picking it up, they could die of Orcus. This is so fun. One of my characters picked it up in the ending, and we were at the very end of the campaign. As a matter of fact, our characters banished Orcus back into the abyss, and he picked it up, and this was literally our last session. I was just about to do a wedding scene for them. I just took that entirely out. There's no way I'm gonna just haphazardly kill my players. I definitely do think it's a good idea to show that, you know, holding this thing isn't a good idea. Like, this is a crucible of sin, right? Maybe having just enough damage, or seriously doing some sort of as I said, a dexterity or saving throw or wisdom saving throw, at least not to hold it, or to see if they could hold on to it, or if it hurts them. But I wouldn't kill them. Maybe if that's like a more of an earlier thing you want to do, but it's pretty ridiculous. This thing looks bad ass, baby. Orcus is so cool. Orcus is our daddy. I don't know why I said that. Right, so where are the characters going? Well, that depends on who they're with, or who they're without. I already talked about that if your characters go without a guide, they're probably gonna get lost. Honestly, do your best to get them some sort of a guide, because honestly, although Dungeons and Dragons is all about fantasy, the coincidence that they would take the right path to run into one of like only several cities is unrealistic. I know that's weird to say as you look at this monkey with two heads. So, Bupido. We mentioned Bupido. I'm not going to go over all the characters as I did like crazy. I'm just going to drop by or kind of summarize where they could take him. Bupido knows how to reach Crackle stuff, right? He can take them there, and he'll be like, hey man, we should go there, because Bupido lives in Crackle stuff, right? That's not exactly why he wants to go there. He's going to tell the characters whatever he can do. Remember, Bupido believes, from a bout of madness, an indefinite madness, he believes that he is some sort of god who requires ritual sacrifice to himself all the time. So he will kill players, hopefully not, probably by the time he fights your players, they're probably going to kill him. But if you want NPCs to disappear, kind of show that, hey man, there's something going on, if you can manage to do that all the way to Crackle stuff, which is what he wants, he will lure the players into his home, which is this boneyard, in this little cave, and there he can summon minions, and he will try to kill all the players at once. There he has a solid chance, while traveling to and fro, probably not, but there he has a pretty good advantage. I ran this campaign a little bit, I'll talk about that later on. I gotta stay on cue. Prince Darendil, Prince being in quotations, because remember, Prince Darendil isn't really a prince. He was also touched by a fit of madness indefinitely. He is a Quagoth who believes that he was originally a prince that was polymorphed into a Quagoth, but really he was just a Quagoth who, and you can leave it there, right? Who believes is something else. Darendil can't offer any useful directions, but he would gladly help the characters get wherever they need to go, maybe even being some sort of protection. Again, he's pretty insane, so it's kind of like a ticking time bomb, right? Darendil will be a helpful protection to the party until someone kind of questions his reality, and then he becomes a problem. Pretty cool idea. And the whole Prince Darendil, old guy DM, Prince Darendil in total, the idea of this guy who believes that he's actually from this city, and he'll tell the characters the name. It'll be like Cloud City, right? And all your characters will be like, oh sure, whatever, right? Assume that's homebrew or something. Throughout the campaign, if you figure out that Cloud City isn't a real place, and the wizard that polymorphed him isn't even real, you'll slowly find out that, again, he's touched by Frazer Blue, one of the demon princes. So this is a nice foreshadow, because Frazer Blue will actually later on in multiple chapters start to mess with the party with madness. That was our funnest session. It was chaotic, it was fast and wild, and it was all thanks to our boy, our prince, or not our prince, but the demon lord. Eldith Felden will take the characters to Grackle, not Grackle, to oh my gosh, Grackle stuff. There's Grackle stuff. console grim, right? But to do that, she has to get to the surface. So again, she's kind of like, I'll go with you guys. I'm a cool guy, fun NPC. But she's not helpful until she can get to the top onto the surface. Jim Jar will guide the characters to Blinding Stone from the north route. Let's see. Blinding Stone is a cool little city with deep gnomes. There is a demon lord who resides there, as does one for every city, which is the theme, is that like nothing is safe. And he can guide them there and get them in. The Blinding Stone is currently recovering from a war, and they have very strict policies on getting in and out. They have a lot of walls. They have a lot of like, hey, who are you? Blah, blah, blah. So having Jim Jar bring him over there is a pretty solid way to get in. But of course, there's 1,000 ways for your characters to earn someone's favor to get into the city, right? Not exactly exciting, but he knows how to get there. Ront is unfamiliar with the Underdark. Remember, that was the orc that was dumb. He's useless, and he's probably gonna get in fights with the characters. You can do it if you're good. If you can do some really good storytelling, you can do like a whole like, oh, Ront just, maybe he was bullied and stuff, and that's why he's mean, and then he becomes a good character and stuff. Honestly, that's been done like 1,000 times, and as fun as that is, I think baboon demons with 2 heads are a lot funner. So I just left them out of there. Shusher, which is where our characters are going to be following in this hypothetical situation. Also, the closest Susher will bring him to the closest city, as I said, to Koa or Shloop-de-Loop. Sorry, it's hard not to fumble all these names. Susher will bring them there. He can get them right in. Koato, honestly, without Susher, I don't think it should be a very easy task to getting into Shloop-de-Loop, right? They're all fish people, and they all think differently. It's not this mind of your character can't show up and be like, hey, well, I'm a paladin and I can, maybe establish a connection to you in the surface. Maybe we can trade you some goods. I have gold. To the Koatoa, that means nothing. Like, it's kind of like, what's a god to a non-believer? Like, these guys don't give a crap. They're doing their own thing, and they're suffering from madness as well. Well, at least half of them are. So getting in is very difficult. As a matter of fact, there's an entire civil war that kind of sprouts from it, and I'll go into that in chapter 3. But I think having Susher bring them there it's just the most obvious take, and I think it makes sense, especially since the Demigorgon resurrects or enters this plane from Shloop-de-Loop. So you probably want to show everyone the Demigorgon as soon as possible because it's such a badass moment, and it's a lot of fun. So where are we? Our sweet baby boy Sereth. Sereth is going to be the best personal guide outside of Susher, leading everyone to Shloop-de-Loop. Sereth can take everyone everywhere because he knows how the Dark Lake works. As I mentioned in the last video, the Dark Lake connects all the cities basically together by like a couple thousand miles, give or take. And he basically knows where everyone's going. There is a fun little treat, all right? I mentioned that Sereth has fungus growing out of his head. He has something going on with this slow parasite that burrowed in, and it's leading him somewhere. It's trying to take him home. Sereth will openly tell the characters, and I've done this for my campaign, even though we didn't go there first, which is totally fine, and it should kind of be like that. Sereth will want everyone to go to somewhere called Neverlight Grove, which is also where another character named Stool, who again, if all these, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of crazy stuff. What the hell are you talking about? You're gonna have to go to my first video because there's no way I can fit that all in here, man. But Stool, one of the other prisoners, is a myconid, a mushroom creature. He will want to bring everyone back to his mushroom creature, like little city, which is in the Underdark. Sereth will also want to go there. Well, why would Sereth want to go there? And you got to roleplay that. You got to be clever, You can say, oh, well, Sereth's a Drow, right? And this is what I use. As a Drow, he knows that Ilvara and the rest of the Drows will pursue our characters. Well, he might say, well, the Drow know where the Kotoa is, Shloop-de-Loop is. They know where Gracklestaf is. They know where Blinding Stone is. Sereth might say, hey, I know that Neverlight Grove isn't a place that would be searched by the Drow, right? And now you have some sort of incentive. Be like, oh man, if you're really DMing the pursuit fairly well, there's going to be constant threats from them. So maybe when your character need a break, they can listen to Sereth and Stool and come on over there. The reason Sereth wants to go there is because what's infecting him is beginning to burrow into the plane there. And again, that's zugged me. Again, it's very creepy. It's a very fun. A lot of it gives off to me Pokemon Lavender Town vibes. It's just like unearthly and ghosts and creepy stuff, and I love it. And resurrections. So that's where Sereth would want to go. He also knows how to get to Menzoberranzan. It would be very difficult to convince Sereth to bring you there, strictly because all the Drow live there and the Drow are hunting him and everyone. There's no reason why your party should want to go there. Hey, but like, never say never. If your characters want to do that really early on, you know, don't send them to death. That's not the point of being a DM. You want to make sure your players are having fun, but put in some obstacles. Maybe redirect them or get them there, you know, and show them in a million different ways. That's not a good idea. While again, not just outright killing them, because that's not ever fun. Topsy and Turvy, our two twin deep gnomes, will also want to go to Blinding Stone, or not Blinding Stone. Oh yeah, Blinding Stone. This is the same place Jimjar wants to go to. Topsy and Turvy are deep gnomes, and remember, they are were-rats. Were-rats. Sorry, obviously that wouldn't make sense. And this isn't just some gimmick that you can throw in. I mentioned previously that you can transform them at any point you want, due to there not being a visible moon. So obviously the players don't know if there's some sort of like moon thing, a were-rat all I can see, and they're not going to admit it because they're terrified. This isn't just a small gimmick that's kind of random. Half wolf, half man, half rat. Thank you, Starlord Special. That's what they are. Half wolf, half man, because they're halflings, but they're gnomes. And then they're rats. So the whole thing is that Topsy and Turvy might want to go there ASAP, because back in Blinding Stone, guess what's happening? All the deep gnomes are having some sort of problem. There seems to be a were-rat problem. As a matter of fact, half the population is kind of suffering from this legacy. And there's a lot to talk about there. It's not exactly what you think. And as a matter of fact, there's that going on, and a three-way kind of war between them two, the deep gnomes, the were-rats trying to fight for liberation, as well as a demon lord who is also beginning to spawn there. Later on this chapter, there is a one shot with a slime that heavily foreshadows the Blinding Stone, what happens there, and all the slime stuff. You also get a lot of fun pets from here. So pet is a really kind of messed up thing to say, seeing as it's more of an NPC because he has sentience. But with the travel pace, you are supposed to roll all the time. Super sucks. As I mentioned, I kind of jumped the gun not being on this page when me and old guy DM kind of talked about our loot tables. So I'm going to go ahead. See, these are some of the encounters. I'm going to go into them in just a bit. But yeah, don't do the... No, I'm not a fan of the rolling. So we're on Phasris and Madness. This is so cool. So I gave you a quick summary in my last video. I'll do it again. The very existence of the demon lords on our plane, or the main plane, causes a radiation of monstrous power. The black magic in its purest form, absolutely chaotic, absolutely demonic. It's not a good time. Oh damn, it's not a good time. So what does this do? What can you do? Well, there are a few things. Some of the effects that happen inside was, like I said, if your character casts some sort of spell, some sort of magic, you can do the chaos tables, and there are tons of different variations of those tables. I don't like using the handbook one because a lot of them are, I mean, they're all right. I mean, it's totally random, but you can find some fun ones that turn your characters into, like sheep or something, or snakes or whatever, and that's a lot more fun. But you can do that, or you can do, as this illustration shows, some pretty mind-boggling stuff. Reality doesn't work normally. If magic doesn't work normally, neither does gravity. I mean, you have like different rocks and stuff suspended, and this is truly a illustration of the Underdark. It could truly just be this almost like space voidish alien world, and that's what's so cool about the Phasris. It's a good excuse. I wrote right here. Oh no, it's a good excuse I wrote. Why did I write that? It's because you can do whatever you want with Phasris. It's a good excuse to fill in and shoehorn in whatever you want to do. You want to do zombies. You want to do minotaurs made of glass. You want to do rock men or rock octopuses. You can do all kinds of stuff with Phasris, and it's really fun. Teleportation doesn't... Oh, well, I should start with divination magic. Being a form of radiation built or born from the demons, divination and holy magic shouldn't really work too well here. As a matter of fact, the book suggests that just to use some sort of divination magic, you should roll an intelligence or your spellcasting a spellcasting roll of whatever magic it is. You know what I'm talking about. Beating 15. Just to see if it's cast. After it's cast, because it's in phase risk, you also need to see if some sort of wild magic will work. I like to personally really instill our characters that this is some sort of, vessel of sin floating around this phase risk by personally harassing our paladin, right? So if you have a character who has divine smite, I wouldn't necessarily roll to have him maybe activate it, right? I would just literally do like half damage. Maybe it doesn't happen at all. Do that, really show them that this is not an area where, the light prevails through everything. The shadow dominates, any sort of holy magic, and I think that's a really good symbol in terms of how dominating this force is. Teleportation, teleporting within phasers. First you have to roll maybe some sort of check to see if you can even do it, but once you do it inside the phasers, there's no telling where you can go. I have used this in a fun few ways. Although it was a mistake, we had to retcon a little bit. I had characters teleport out of the phasers, and I know I said don't do this, but this is way later on. I had them teleport straight into Menzo Branson, and that's miles away. And I know there's a limit, but also this is Dungeons and Dragons. You can make things up, and that's how you DM, brothers. You just make shit up on the fly. Well, what else happens in the phasers? Well, if you stand in there too long, you might get a little mad. And what do I mean by that? So let's see. Do I have? Oh, I do. Madness. Here we go, the madness table. Now, I'm so afraid of being sued because I have $7 in my bank account, and Netflix is about to screw me up tomorrow. And I heard that if you modify images that you copy, you can kind of get away with it. So there's me dabbing. This is years ago, man. So don't, I know cringe, but it was years ago. Yeah. Oh, what happens? What is madness? Well, first, let's go over the effects and then go over the time. If you stand in phasers too long, it could mess with your brain and make you go absolutely ballistic and mad. So what your characters will do once they get madness is, and don't even roll for it. I personally wouldn't want you to, depending on the severity. If you're in phasers and you want to try and do a roll for random loot, or not random loot, a random effect from the chaos magic table, or if you want to roll to see if they're just mad just by happenstance, that's fine. Then I think you should do it. But I like to infuse madness during scenes where our characters witness something fucked up, right? Sorry for swearing, but honestly that deserved an F-bomb. If your character sees Zugmi resurrecting corpses of their friends and birthing like literal canals of fungus out of their chest and their eyeballs, if you see characters and zombies kind of like just ripping people apart, maybe in the phasers they begin to see hallucinations, hallucinations that their friends are losing their mind. Oh yeah, maybe you can show a character lose their mind. Maybe you can maybe they see something disgusting. Maybe they see their family. Maybe that's enough to make them go mad. Or maybe they're paranoid, right? Sugi the Dragon asks, would you let a character choose how they specifically would like to go mad if they get a general idea? I never... Seeing as you're doing a lot of world building, and I'm assuming this isn't what you're asking, but like if they're like, oh, maybe I want to be, my character saw this and I want to purposely be mad. I don't think so. I would always have them kind of roll, specifically because, like I said, I don't really have them roll for madness. I create situations that are catalysts for the madness. What do I mean by that? Well, I already went through it, right? Corpses or seeing the Demigorgon, right? In chapter 3, when the Demigorgon rises up, I'm not even going to have you do a saving throw. What I'll literally have you do is roll a d4. And maybe a 1 and a 2, you gain the first bout of madness, first level, because there's 3 levels, and I'll go into that in a bit. Sounds like I'm bouncing around, but it'll all make sense in a second. Have a catalyst happen. The Demigorgon rises out of the steamy water. Blood is literally being summoned. Koatoa are killing themselves just for sacrifice, or just out of, pure madness, right? Your characters are going to be like, what the fuck is happening? Have them roll a d4. 1 to 2, they get the first level of madness. 2 or 3, they get the second. I almost hold it. Math is hard. 4, they get maybe the third bout of madness, and that should be pretty difficult. The levels of madness, what do they mean, right? Well, if you get the first level of madness, the duration of how long you suffer from an effect lasts for 1d10. So you land an 8, they suffer for 8 minutes. Out of combat, that's a lot of fun role-playing stuff. If it's out of combat, I would tell you again, old guy DMs knows what I'm talking about. Well, maybe because all these are pretty good, but I would specifically kind of pick one for your character, right? So if it's a cleric, maybe a cleric of life, don't even roll, baby. Give him a nice 13 over here, 13 to 14. Life is meaningless. Embrace the, is that a real word? I don't know if that's a Dungeons and Dragons character. Nihilism, right? That's nihilism. Rejection of all religious and moral principles. Fuck yeah, do that to your cleric. Mess them up. And you know what? It's only for 8 minutes. What a big deal. Maybe, no, hold on. Get back. Put that sword away. We're not on you yet. So those characters, right, have a character go into the like complete atheist mode, and you know, maybe even have their god pitch in a little bit after their 10 minutes or potentially hours. Level 2 is the same thing. You'd roll a d10, whatever number you get, that's how many hours they are. Have them pitch in, right? Maybe 8 hours came by, your character goes back to praying, and the first thing they're going to want to do is pray to their, you know, if they're role playing, they're going to be like, hey, you know, whoever, Paylor or whatever, I'm sorry that I told you I was not religious, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Have the god come, maybe not come down, but give him a sign of like, hey man, no, you're cool, I get it, but like have some sort of serious conversation and scare them a little bit. This is a good chance to be like, hey, you know, you're for it. Have let's say this, I'm being the god and this is a cleric who's apologizing for being an atheist for a little bit. You're like, hey man, you're cool, I get madness is rough, but as a, you know, your fortitude has been for however many years they've been alive, a cleric, you know, unstoppable. The fact that I'm not getting mad, it tells you a lot, because I know that you didn't choose to give that up. Now, nothing can break our tether. I'm giving you my radiance, my magic, and I make that tether made of adamantium. Nothing can break through it. Except for this. Whatever this is, whatever the phasers is, whatever it's coming from, is a threat to not only our connection, but specifically something more. So maybe on the 4th session, you have a character's god literally tell him, hey man, whatever this is pretty fucking bad. And that'll kind of freak him out, because most of your players usually don't even get some sort of interaction from the gods. So maybe you don't want to do a full-blown, they come down, full-blown message. I don't like to do stuff like that, not this early. That's some level 12, 15, 20 shit. Even then, it's never their true form, because it'll go crazy or whatever. But have some sort of message come down, maybe even in the sand, you know, like be careful or something like that. That'd be a lot of fun and a really good thing to do. And see, now what if your cleric rolled a 1 and they had no madness? You have lost a pretty cool role-playing moment. What if they rolled, right? Like, you can do a bunch of different stuff. You know, you're a prophet, the god whispers directly in your ear. That could be really fun for a cleric too. Or pick a character who specifically hates gods. Maybe his character was, you know, killed because of some sort of divine what is it called, crusade, right? Now they're a prophet. That's pretty fun. I specifically like to build upon these things, kind of make your connections, make it feel personal, right? So what happens if they, level 1 was 10 minutes or up to 10 minutes, level 2 was up to 20 or 10 hours, right? What happens if they roll a 4? What happens if they get the 3rd tier? Well, your madness is indefinite until you are hit with a greater restoration spell. This is a big deal. Now, why do I hate the random rolling table? Because if your character rolls an 18, you are the reincarnation of an enemy the party has killed, and they truly believe that now your paladin with divine smite is Ilvara, depending on how they roleplay. And it's not going to be this Freaky Friday, what the hell, I'm in this thing. It's going to be like, okay, well now I'm obviously a bad guy. Your character will permanently want to kill your characters. And if you're, you know, before level 5, 6, I'm not even sure where Greater Restoration comes out, there's a good chance that you permanently turn your character into a playable NPC that's trying to kill your friends. And yeah, that could be fun in terms like, what do we do, you know? But let's say that they chain him up. Let's say they drag him along. Very cute if it's an NPC. If it's your player, they're going to be stuck for 2-3 sessions not being able to do shit, role playing a character they never designed. That's not fun. That's why you got to be careful with some of these tables. Later on, and I'm going to be very quick with this because I know how crazy it sounds, but later on, about 80% into the campaign, there's a chance that your characters can all go back in time and restart at the first page of the book. That's insane. And that's on a random roll table. You roll 98, 99, whatever the hell, and now you have to restart the entire campaign. Yeah, maybe it'd be kind of fun. Maybe it's a good idea. Genuinely, it's not, not crazy bad. Now your characters can, they know all the secrets. They're high level. They get to really flex. Honestly, one idea I had was send them back for a couple of hours. I shouldn't be going into this, but that could literally end your campaign, potentially. And if you're gonna, roll 98 and say, oh, I don't want to restart at Valkenvelve, I'm gonna fib and roll another one. If you're gonna do that anyway, why not just pick one that's most suitable for your players? It's not railroading. It's just, DMing. Star-Lord Special says Greater Restoration is a 5th level spell. 5th level spell. That's insane. Most of my characters haven't gotten that after maybe a year's worth of playing in terms of 5th level spells. Now, you want that happening at level, because when the Demogorgon comes out, that's a pretty, it's pretty reasonable to give someone some sort of indefinite madness. But making them the players that, hey, now I'm going to kill everyone, you're not going to do that. Your characters aren't going to have Greater Restoration. Maybe it's a good incentive if you want to scare them a bit, leave some Greater Restoration scrolls around. Of course, that's a good idea. Like, that's a good, easy loop around, and that can make fun role playing. But honestly, you got to think about these things ahead, and you got to think about how your players feel. Because it's not your job, it's your job. I mean, I'm saying it's your job to make sure the players are having fun. So overall fun in games, as I said, madness can be, we are going way too far. Sorry if you guys saw that. Hopefully you haven't. So the next point of contention is Need for Speed Drow Pursuit and why I don't do anything the book asks me to do. I'll keep this short. The Drow should be chasing your characters the entire time. They should be tracking them. Elvara never gives up, right? They use everything they can. Quagoths, spiders, giant spiders, elite guards, stuff like that. That's awesome. However, as I said with the random loot table, you should kind of plan these around. Kind of input them and create little scripted events. What I'm saying? If your characters have to go down a tunnel, you can say what comes next. Why not do, and I'll mix this up with something later on, have the Drow follow or once the characters are finally over, suspended webs that are over a 500-foot canyon, now imagine the Drow are chasing them there, where the very thing that's keeping them from falling to their death is a couple of feet of webs. And they have giant spiders so they could make their own webs. Now we're talking. That's interesting. You just want to have your party fight 3 Drow out of the blue. Hey, we found you. They could get away, or maybe they stay, maybe they fight, maybe they get more gear. You have fun. Old Guy DM says, I started my campaign session 1 with the players using their characters at level 20 against the 9 cult fanatics trying to open portals to the abyss. Balance Keeper, in quotations, I'm assuming that's a character, an NPC, sent the PCs there to show a god that they were those that could help stop the demonic incursion. Freaked my players the heck out until they realized that I had imported all of the level 20 abilities into the foundry for them to use. Now that's awesome. Give them this problem and then give them a key, or give them a chest and then give them a key right afterwards, and you can start to really kind of those spikes of adrenaline, right? Those dopamine. That's what you want. If you want to scare your players, I think the latency between when this trigger of, hey, you should be afraid of this, and then the following, oh, okay, we're no longer afraid of this, right? Fire's only scary until, you have 50 firemen around you and you're 10 miles out, right? That's that latency. The sooner you wait, the more you kind of let that linger, the better. And if you go too far, you'll do what I do, which is forget. And that'll happen to me all the time. Star-Lord Special says, greasy spiders. No, thank you. Unfollow me. I'm gonna block you. Suki the Dragon. Now I'm imagining Fast and Furious, but against Drow in the Underdark, just freaking drifting through the caves. Hell yeah. Yeah, that's basically what this is. I don't know why I'm making this guide when I can just put up Tokyo Drift, because it's basically the same thing. It's just a plot or shot-for-shot remake of this book. Fungus and filler. This is all the boring crap. The book's like, hey man, here's this. I swear to God, half of these were written in 1 minute. I probably put as much effort into this video as they did with some of this content. So we'll start with the fungus though. We'll calm down, Paul. Stop. Drink your energy drink. start with the fungus. Why am I starting with the fungus? Why is this important? To me, it's not, right? But for you, depending on how immersive you want this campaign to be, you can show off not only, not, one second, not only, oh, now I see who Tsuki is. I'm so sorry, guys. What was I talking about? Fungus! Your character shouldn't be, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm gonna clap now so I know to edit this back. There's one more thing that could happen in the phase res. And this is pretty fun. If one of your characters dies in the phase res, what can you do about it? You can do whatever the fuck you want. And that is Dungeons and Dragons, baby. We had a character, a Drow, a female Drow, I believe it was Ashra, die in the phase res. I looked at the random loot table and I rolled a dice. Some of my players are in the chat and they're gonna not be happy about this. That was all for flavor. Of course, I already picked out what I want to happen in the phase res. Out of the magic table, one of the things that happens is you reincarnate your player as that per individual into whatever you want. Well, as if Elvira reincarnates into a male dwarf, not even an underdark dwarf, just a regular dwarf. What a hell that individual is going to live in. Not only has she lost all of her abilities, her entire authority was stripped from her, all of her command. She would be killed on the spot back at Menzo Branson. At that point, he would be killed right on the spot. Elvira's not going to have a good time. And if your players genuinely hate him now, well, they could just leave him alone. See what happens. Personally, you can do some really twisted stuff. I mean, psychological horror like that, I love it. I love it. What else can you do? You can bring them back with the different things, right? Let's say it's level 3rd session, someone dies because, you know, they fell. Happens all the time. And well, you know, they put a lot of effort into their characters. You can bring them back with the phase res. It's magic. It's fucked up. You can do whatever you want, right? So bring them back. Maybe do something different though. Maybe they have no pulse. Maybe their skin changed a different color. Maybe they changed races and now they have new stats, right? And now the rest of the game, your character's gonna be like, how the fuck do I get back? Or do they embrace their new stats, right? Maybe they come back and, God, who knows? Maybe there's 2 of them. You can do whatever you want. Death is literally only another opportunity in the Underdark. And that's why I love this campaign. I'm gonna go back to the chat really quick. We're about to go back to our fungus. Before I go into chat, why am I going to talk about mushrooms? I'm talking about mushrooms because depending on how you play your game, your characters won't have rations. As I said earlier in the beginning, they could be traveling for 30 days straight. They need something to eat. If they don't, you know, maybe their equipment all rots, maybe, you know, whatever. Maybe they need light. Maybe they don't have, you know, the spells or something like that. With all this fungus, you can do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, like edible fungus. Now your characters have food. But also, wouldn't it be fun if your characters had a journal and, you know, you threw out a field of 7 different mushrooms. Now your characters can identify it because they're not that high of a level. They don't have, you know, really good throat checks. Maybe they just completely use all their advantage and they still don't figure out what these mushrooms do. There's only one way to do it. You gotta eat it. Now your characters are writing down what the mushrooms do. They're getting immersed. It's at that point, the moment your character picks up a journal and a pen and starts writing, your friend isn't writing anymore. It's literally their character, and you've created this nice tether back into reality. And that's really fun. I mean, you can do fungus that, you know, if lit on fire, explodes. You can do fungus that heals, fungus that is the poison. And now your characters can drain it for poison arrows, poison darts, whatever. Maybe you do one that is a fungus that's sharp as steel. Now your characters are crafting weapons. They're improving their weapons. Maybe they're creating hilts. Maybe they're making their own weapons. Did I say that? Maybe they're making armor. Let me go through some of these really quick, right? Barrel stock. It could store up to 1d4 gallons of water, and it access 1d6 days worth of food. That's just right there, though. I mean, if you just kind of, how fun is trying to survive in the Underdark when literally just food that counts as ration for 4 or 5 days can be grown on the ceilings and stuff like that? Granted, your players have to eat it. They have to be brave enough to try it. But once they do, I mean, your ration problem is fucking over. And that's the problem, is half the fungus is just food. And yeah, you can, maybe you can, I don't know, do one for 4 days, one for 3 days, one for two. That's not fun. I want to look at the fun stuff, right? So like I said, mushrooms that can be lit on fire and thrown, and they all have specific names, but you can name them whatever you want. Mushrooms that glow a different color. Mushrooms that when your characters eat them, they have a +1 in whatever, but like a -2 in this. You can genuinely just use the mushrooms and any sort of the fungus to create whatever effect you want on the fly. Just remember what they do, because there are your characters are going to want to run into these fungus again. A living, breathing world, right? There's a fungus that will literally cast Induce Enlarge, and it becomes pivotable. It becomes pivotal because one of the characters later on who's trying to escape from the party will literally use it to shrink down into a few inches and escape from cracks, eating this fungus. And now when they're following these characters and they find their backpack and now they have a whole bag of fungus that makes them smaller or larger, that's a game changer. That's huge. You can start setting up fungus and prepping your characters like one of those old school Doom before your boss battle room where they have ammo for rockets and ammo for this and this and this. Kind of prep them up, let them out, and then your characters have all these really cool tools that they could use, right? So I'm gonna go back to the chat really quick. Sugi was thinking, now I'm thinking more like actual cards, not fantasy. We talked about that. Society of Brilliance. What is this? Society of Brilliance is a really cool kind of group, in my opinion, but the game doesn't really do much with it. The books don't. I had to homebrew a whole bunch of stuff, and let me share a little bit of that with you. The Society of Brilliance are a collection of neutral, very neutral, kind of, what's the word? Neutral line characters. Their entire thing is that they came to the Underdark, the place of demonic sources, and they heard about a library that tells you about the past, the future, and the present. They are scholars who are trying to figure out everything they can about the Underdark. So much so that if your characters run into them and ask them for a way back to the surface, they're not going to know. These characters teleport left and right. They don't care about mapping their way to the surface. Their entire thing is to go deeper and deeper and figure out where all these portals are coming from, where the phasers is coming from, what mushrooms we can use to do what, right? Now there's some really cool characters in there, like Grazolix. Wow, that's so cool. These are a whole bunch of different names. I went out of my way and I named all of my members of society after different types of alcohol. That's kind of a weird thing to say openly, but what I mean by that is there's a mind flayer who's a good guy. He's part of the society and he's been incubated into their role. What I had the society be is they have some sort of chapter living in the it's the plane with where like things float around. What do you guys in the chat will know exactly what I'm talking about? But I had them live on another plane and that they would teleport into the Underdark and move around and do stuff. Now, they're not going to teleport the players out because potential, for me, I already thought about this earlier. If they could teleport, why not move the characters? Well, I had them have astral plane. Thank you so much, Go School. I had given them amulets that allows them to teleport specifically to their chapter and back. So now you can kind of, fix things up. Well, earlier we were talking about teleportation, weren't we? The phasers? What happens if you teleport in the phasers? Even if you're trying to go out of plane, that shit will jack you up. I had my characters run into Pinot Noir, or Pinot Grigio, which is what I named the Mind Flayer. And I had the players run into them, and he's like, hey man, we're pretty, weak in terms of me being a psionic deity. I'm not all for it, right? And the characters had to help him get reunited with other members of society. Eventually, I had the society play a bigger role, and one of my characters who ended up creating a player character who was a member of the Society of Brilliance. I love the Society a lot because it's pretty cool, and because we've expanded it, it feels like my own little thing, and I very much recommend you kind of make it bigger. You can make this some weird, like, fourth reality kind of scholarly dudes, college peeps, and that could be pretty cool, and they could be fun allies for the characters. So now, terrain encounters, what? Yeah, the book will offer a bunch of different terrains, such as like the boneyard, right? And I'm going to go through this really quickly, these types of terrain, because the terrain, again, is a random loot encounter. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because you can take these terrains and apply them to other things. One of the terrains are like the boneyard, which is just like I mentioned earlier, just a graveyard of bones, and you can put whatever you want in. There's a snake made of dragons, that's horrible. A snake made of bones, or whatever you want to do. Maybe enemies that your players have killed in the past, their bones somehow wounded up here, and now they're resurrected. A boneyard is a really nice place to foreshadow orchids. I haven't done that personally, but I'm just thinking out loud. I'm gonna go through, read a few of these. They're not great, they're not that fun, but hey, I paid for this fucking book, so I'm gonna read it out loud. That's what's gonna get me sued. Dungeons and Dragons is gonna record that clip and they're gonna be like, give me $5 million. So some of the things are Fungus caverns, and it's literally just a cave full of fungus. A gas leak, a gorge, maybe a really huge ladder. I mean, think of things that would mess with your characters in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. Maybe 3 of your characters are incredibly dexterous and the biggest guy isn't, and now there's just a wall that goes up 300 feet and your characters have to start climbing up the wall. Maybe they have to make checks every 100 feet, right? For climbing a ladder, that's kind of dumb. I get it, except halfway up, there's a pipe or the wall kind of cracks due to fissures going on all the time in the Underdark because of great worms moving around and the Demigorgon and demons breaking into our plane. Oh no, now there's a crack and out comes out Phasers. Maybe the Phasers attracts things. Maybe the Phasers makes the ladder all slippery. Maybe now with the Phasers coming about, it fills up the old cavern and you have a specter fly in or some sort of rocked, and now they're fighting someone while they can't use spells, or at least the risk of it, right? Maybe the Phasers infects the rocks in a different way, and while they're climbing up this wall, which they think is completely barren, it's Dwayne the Rock Octopus over on the wall. And this entire rock kind of builds out and molds out because they have a really awesome camouflage. Part of their group, if they're not moving, they're basically invincible attached to walls. And now while your characters are climbing, phasers are spewing out, so maybe it's not a good idea to do spells. And also tentacles are hitting you from all sides because these rock octopuses are now alive. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff. And I literally only took like this little 2-sentence thing that's like high ledge, ladder, and you can start throwing shit in. And I think that's why, maybe I'm giving the book a lot of like discredit, but honestly, I think once you start combining these ideas, that's where you get some good stuff. So other terrains such as lava, boss battle worthy. Why do I have that written down? I had the characters enter an area that is sandy. Again, it's this huge cavern, so it's all underground, but there's an active volcano, right? Or maybe the volcano is not always active. It's just sitting there. And I have the characters walk into a bunch of salamander people who used to worship this volcano. As a matter of fact, years ago, they tried activating it. They were part of a cult, and I had these remnants of the cult kind of about temples and signs that were destroyed. And maybe some of these remnants who were years have passed and they no longer care about this volcano. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, well, everything was fine until, the Drow came and we've waged war with them for years, and now we're just kind of people living in the sand, just simple stuff like that. Nice little world building, but let's push that further. Lava is bad ass. Lava is Dungeons and Dragons. I had the Drow finally kind of meeting up, and this is session after session. This is a little bit after the first, or the Shloop de Loop. Also, mind you, everything that I'm telling you, you're going to use all of this to fill in every instance of travel between the cities. There's about 7 times where that happens. So for each instance, at least an average of 2 sessions per traveling instance, depending on where they're going. And now you have to do basically run this chapter 20 times throughout your entire campaign before they hit a helmet of teleportation. That's why I think that's where things get difficult. It truly pushes your brain, and luckily there's a guide on here to help you out with that. So I had the characters finally have a boss battle with all the Drow, a final standoff with Ulvar and Jorlan and everyone, and okay. I'm sorry about that. I had my characters encounter the Drow and a final standoff with Ulvar and everyone, and of course the lava was there. Ulvar was showing off her magic, making people walk into the lava, and lava does insane amounts of damage in Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know what that is, you know what lava is. Lava D&D. It's pretty freaked up. Creatures within 30 feet of lava take a 1d4 fire damage per round. I didn't do that. That's badass. I should have done that. Within 20 feet of lava, it goes higher. Just being 20 feet of lava could mess them up. Again, these are all recommendations, but I believe it was like 4d10 or something per turn that your characters are in lava. It's abysmal. It's abysmal. It's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. Sorry, I'm just yelling. This ghost stuff is hitting me. but it's a good excuse to start putting stuff in there. One of the things I did immediately, seeing as phasers can do whatever you want, I had the characters enter into a forest where it was raining. Yeah, the phasers was there. There was even lightning clouds. I love the idea of being, throwing in different terrains. Lava's natural, but rain, maybe even snow if you're being adventurous, that's badass. And you can all do that with the phasers. I already mentioned the Society of Brilliance. There's stuff like slime, sinkholes. If you go, the nice thing about Lightsabers is it has a big arsenal of different types of demons and stuff, but you can find those anywhere. It's not necessarily... I forgot about the next page. The good stuff, baby. The good stuff. What am I talking about? Well, the book offers 4 one-shot-esque situations that you can throw in between traveling. I recommend that you take at least one of these and put them in between the travel time. Now, again, you can be traveling for up to 30 days. I wouldn't put 2 of these in there. I would put maybe 1 of these and then something else. You can go online, and honestly, I think I'll just say it right here that after Shloop the Loop, the characters will have to travel again to their next city. I'm going to make a video about that travel, and what I'm going to do, and hopefully you guys might like this, is I'm going to take every idea that I've heard on Facebook and Dungeons and Dragons or Reddit, and I'm going to fill in the travel time in between with a whole bunch of homebrew stuff. I saw like a giant worm where you go through the insides of it due to it being dead and clogging up a whole tunnel, and you can do a lot of fun stuff. But these 4 are from the book. These 4 are pretty awesome, and I'm going to go through all 4 of them pretty quickly, giving you a summary and then like a quick rundown through its map and why I would do it. What you're seeing on that screen, so there's a hook horror, as you see, hook horror lair. Hook horrors look a lot like Gigan from Godzilla. Tell me they don't. You gotta be dumb if you're not thinking of Gigan, right? Why is he holding a lightsaber? Well, baby, that's because we get one. DM Starlord Special says DM guide suggests 18d10 damage for being submerged in lava. Now, depending on the DM you are, you're like, oh well, that means submerged is like when they're completely like had to toe in the water. Dude, honestly, if you want to do half of that, that's insane. 18d10 for what, level 6-7 players by that time? That's a lot of damage. Oh yeah, that's right. The good stuff, baby. The first awesome little section that the book kind of recommends is called the Silken Paths. Well, what is this? Well, the Silken Paths is a nice little basically terrain of just straight silken paths made of giant spiders and even gargantuan spiders. Basically, at one point, your characters will come across a gorge. This gorge specifically spans 800 miles, in terms of how long it is, and then how deep it is, 500 feet. 800 miles being like, that's how long like the actual divot is that spans around in a circle, versus how long the gaps could be. That all ranges up to you, right? Do you want your characters to run into this gorge, see a whole bunch of spider webs that connect, as bridges in between? They're like, I don't want to do that. Maybe if we keep going around, we'll find maybe it kind of connects. It doesn't. Eventually, your characters probably will have to cross these silken paths, probably several times. And I really like the silken paths because you can do a lot of really fun stuff. So why would they possibly want to cross them? You can naturally just make that a sort of obstacle that naturally they're going to have to cross. Maybe when they first enter the Silken Paths, you have another NPC just wander onto a web without saying anything. Of course, it would have to be someone that's native to the Underdark. But let's say just Sereth just like goes on, right? Sereth especially makes sense because him and spiders have a nice symbiotic relationship, right? Maybe Sushar, who also is a pacifist and is incredibly carefree, he just starts wandering on. That kind of shows your players, all right, well, hey, I've already done this so much, I feel so comfortable doing this that I'm just crossing it. It's no big deal. Shows your characters that, okay, well, we can trust these webs. They do hold on, but how much do they hold on? How thick is this area with webs? How thin is it? That's all up to you. I like to kind of just generalize it and be like, yeah, there's just like tons of it. It's difficult to see if there's the way I kind of point is there's 2 levels. One where it's difficult to see the bottom of the pit because there's so much white, thousands of layers of just different kind of strands. versus one where you can see maybe 6-7 layers of spiders, and then it's just that cold void of blackness. And again, when your characters have to cross it, you can create this nice, you know, kind of synthetic danger, right? I mean, not synthetic, because they could totally fall. But luckily there are rules to all that, and we'll go on to them. So let's say their characters run into the Silken Paths and don't have any followers. Maybe they killed their NPCs, maybe they all died, maybe who knows, right? Well, luckily, there are two individuals called the Web Runners, Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait, two, oh my gosh, they are two thrill-seeking goblins. The campaign kind of suggests them that, they are two thrill-seeking goblins as the book describes them. They use oil and they splash onto their feet so that they could literally surf the web. Anyway, these two act as a pretty neutral guide. Neutral, albeit a bit selfish, right? Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait could easily guide any character across the cavern. They could even be, you know, their eyes and ears. Hey, there's spiders over on the left. Hey, I want to go on this one. This spider web is degrading. Hey, there's a chest over on this one, right? I didn't mean to say it so suspiciously, because Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait will very much be loyal to their customers. Now, what do I mean by customers? There's no way in hell Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait would ever show anyone around without some sort of payment. The first time, you know, 10 gold, 20 gold, and your party probably won't have gold. Or maybe Yuck Yuck doesn't care for gold, right? In the Underdark, I mean, all the cities would do that, but maybe to tie it into Shloop de Loop, right? Maybe they care for a specific type of seaweed or something that the players don't have. Well, here's where the role playing comes in. If they won't do it for gold or whatever, maybe they'll do it for your weapon. Maybe they'll do it for your armor, your shield. And when your characters already are pretty much running low on equipment, that can be difficult. And that's a really fun kind of gauge. And, you know, do whatever you can to show that Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait will for sure guide the players across without any sort of, you know, suspicious. They just have to be paid, and they are well worth it. Maybe if the characters are like, nah, you know what, whatever. And then Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait will like, see you later, you know? Maybe as the characters are crossing, maybe some of them get stuck in some sort of web or a trap, and Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait just kind of glide around, you know, watching from afar, and they're laughing. Nothing nefarious though, right? These guys are just trying to make a living. Now, that's fun, but how do we go crazy, right? So there's a few things you can do on the Silken Paths. First, let me tell you about the general features. It is difficult terrain. Any creature with a climbing speed can walk along the webs at that speed. That's horrible. That's like half speed. It might be faster. It might be faster. If one of you guys can help me out, but that already sucks. And if your characters are trying to, you know, they're already exhausted, there's no way they're going to rest on this thing, and now they have to wait. So it's either we camp out here, where there are obviously spiders, because there's webs, or we risk the half speed, and we risk exhaustion, and we go across. And again, who knows what we'll encounter on the webs. Maybe. That's what I was waiting for. What do they encounter on the webs? Well, let me do a few, right? Society rescue, aka sword time. The book recommends that you leave a NPC strangled up, snared in webs somewhere down the road. Maybe the characters, and of course you got to make it difficult. You don't want your characters just walk right, you know, this guy happened to be over here, maybe a few hundred feet away. You know, help, right? And this guy's all tied up. Now they have to figure out how to get there. Do the characters want to help them? You know, are they that good natured? Maybe they don't. You know, what are the rewards? What's the incentive? Well, maybe he's like, hey, if you guys help me out, I can give you guys treasure. Maybe I can do this. Maybe he's knocked unconscious and he doesn't say anything at all. Maybe if you want to really test your player's moral compass, don't just have him be unconscious. They spot a halfling in the web. Are they going to save him or are they not? Have it be so far that it's genuinely going to take maybe the rest of the session. That's up to you. What if they do find him? Well, they will find a cartographer for the Society of Brilliance. This guy's name is Fungus. Genuinely in the book, his name is Fungus. He works for the society as a cartographer. That means he's good at mapping stuff out. Mapping stuff down here, not up there, right? He's not going to automatically show the players how to get out. If the players ask, maybe he'll revert them to, or what's the word? Reference them over to not a reference, whatever. He'll say go to Gracklestov. Maybe they'll have a way there. Go to Blinding Sun. Maybe he'll even give them a map. And now your characters don't even need NPCs. They can use the map and follow where they're. It's important that the map is is useful. The society literally devote their entire lives into doing this. Don't give them information that's false. Don't kind of play them down. Or if you want to play them as this like genuine like college kind of class, a bunch of, you know, whatever losers that don't know what the hell they're doing, that would be kind of fun too. Always getting mischievous events and your players just constantly help them out. Starlord Special says climbing takes 2 extra feet per foot in difficult terrain, so a regular person with 30 feet of movement can only move 10 feet on the webs. That's less than half, obviously. Paul Parda saying that out loud. Duh. 10 is less than half. But that's slow as fuck. And that's something to consider for your players, right? So if they're moving 10 feet on movement, Starlord Special to say that some spells give a climbing speed, so they can do it normally. Maybe even if you want to leave spells or scrolls or potions or something like that around to help your players do things faster. Maybe Yuck Yuck and Spiderbait, for a little bit more incentive, can offer up these potions, these spells to get across faster. Just a little premium, you know? So what happens when the players help them out? Why do I write sword time? Because well, if your characters do help Fungus can say, hey man, you know what, I don't have anything on me, but I can show you a map, or depending on how you want to DM, I can lead you to a lost tomb where there are sure to be rewards in there, right? And so it's kind of like, oh, you have unlocked a side quest. Now if the characters, there's a tomb that Fungus will bring them to. If your characters don't save Fungus, or choose not to have this tomb pop up, you can just reflavor it, call it a temple, and 2 sessions later, when they're traveling from Shloop to somewhere else, they run into this temple. And I'll bring it up in a second. I'll actually bring it up next slide, what this temple is. But this is one of the one-shots that the game will offer you in between moving. And the reason I have sword time is because if your players go through the whole thing, which could not happen because it is a little funky, they could get Dawn. What is it? Dawnbringer. Literally, sword lightsaber. That's badass, especially if you can get that in like session 3. Have your players go from nothing to nothing, but one of you guys has a lightsaber. That could be pretty fun. That could be pretty fun for roleplay as well. So, what else can happen? Really quick before I go on to that. Drow catch up. The Drow have spiders. There are individuals, characteristics of some monsters where they might be blind, but depending on the vibrations in the webs, the spiders can know where they are at all times. The Drow can work on their way. Not necessarily that they do it themselves, but again, a lot of their pets are giant spiders. So they have a lot of spies and insight into that kind of stuff. So have the Drow catch up. Halfway between the players are 500 feet over dangling spider webs that aren't extremely durable. They could take most weight, but fire, damage, they could be cut up. Now your characters are having a fight where the Drow have all the advantage of being able to move back and forth. And maybe they fire from rangers. And maybe throw in a little bit of phaserus just for the spellcasters, right? Webs are being cut down, characters are holding on for their dear life, doing strength check, dexterity throws, do this. There's fire, there's spiders. It's crazy, it's ballistic. And at any point the characters can fall. If the characters fall, they could do some sort of a check to see if they get, maybe they get hit with a spider web. I would kind of have 3 levels. The first level of falling, your characters roll a check to see if they grab onto something. The second level, if you don't want to like hurt them, is that they do fall a substantial amount of feet and they take force damage from landing, right? The third, straight up pitfall. Have them fall. Characters have maybe 1 round of combat to figure out how to save them, and that depends on, if one of your characters can fly. I believe that's what happened in our campaign. We had 2, oh my gosh, the angels, what are they called? We had 2 characters who had wings, basically. I totally forgot they're called. The angel race, if any of you guys can help me out. But, they had to use their wings to catch up and make sure, and now they have a distinct advantage over the Drow. The Drow are on the spiders who are on the webs. These individuals can fly around, cut the webs. It could be a lot of fun. That's worth an entire session. Push it a little bit further. What else can you put on there? Dark mantles and spectators. Let me show you what a spectator is. Hit them with one of these. And if they don't really know D&D too much, they'll certainly know that this thing looks familiar. Asimar, thank you so much. Asimar, what the hell's wrong with me? Spectators, throw in a couple of these, right, with a few laser beams. Have them maybe even Who knows? Maybe as your characters are crawling through, have them stealthing or whatever they're doing, and they see a few spectators fly by, right? Maybe a couple 100 feet away. What the hell is that, right? Maybe 5 more fly by. Maybe a beholder genuinely comes on out. Now, the beholder should never see the characters. The characters should be completely terrified. They don't do anything to get caught, and they just watch by. Let that tense up. Maybe the beholder turns a little bit, doesn't notice him. He's busy. He's doing his own thing, or she's doing his own thing. It's doing its own thing, and it moves by. But maybe one of the spectators lags behind, sees our characters, and now you have a fight with an enemy who can fly, shoot laser beams to cut down webs. I mean, that's pretty fun. And spectators aren't even that powerful, so you can throw them up against a group of level 2s, level 3s. If you really want to fuck with your characters, why don't you put a chest just halfway dangling? You can make this easy. You can make a chest 10 feet away on another level of webs. Characters want to go figure out what it is. Sure, they climb down, they open it up, play with it a little bit. Maybe the chest is just dangling on a spider web, right over the chasm. Your players are going to be a little, meta. They're going to be like, well, there has to be something good, because if we to climb down there to get that chest to come back up, who knows what it is? That could certainly kill us, right? Especially if there's no webs underneath it, or if you want to do webs maybe 50 feet underneath. So now they're risking that force damage if they fall down. What if when they open it, it was a mimic? And now you have this horribly difficulty spike of a mimic trying to grab as he's being, as he's hanging. All your characters now have to help out. How are we going to get this guy out of the mimic? How are we going to, get this guy safe? Maybe the mimic kind of collapses the spider webs, and kind of now they're both falling, because a mimic's mouth can be pretty damn sticky. Don't ask me. So that's a whole role-playing plus combat situation that could be incredibly tense and incredibly fun, and disastrous if they don't work well. So after their mimic, after all this, they save Fungus, or maybe they don't. Maybe they wander and they just find the doors to a nice little temple. Well, what the hell is this? This is the lost tomb of Kahim. Let me tell you the details. Let me tell you the quick lore of this place. So there is a temple that the characters can run into. Outside the temple, as they pass through the doors, they're going to hear, help, 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 right? Some sort of a desperate call. Maybe it's barely dim. Maybe it takes a perspective check. Yeah, perception check, sorry. And maybe only one of your characters hits it. In this crappy world, the Underdark, the Phasers has people seeing visions all the time. As a matter of fact, it's going to happen inside this tomb. So now your characters are like, okay, well, we don't know if that was real. And I'm like, I don't know if someone's really in trouble. Now maybe your characters are like, no, it is the Phasers, let's leave it alone. Maybe step it up. Maybe you've planned this whole thing for 2 hours and now your characters aren't going to use it. Maybe just give them a little bit more of a push. Maybe now as they're walking away, all 4 or 3 or whatever, the whole party and the NPCs here, please don't go, please, I'm trapped, please help me. If all your characters hear it after that one, there's probably a good point, a little bit of boost in confidence that, hey, maybe we should go in there. Maybe someone does need our help. Maybe we aren't all hallucinating, right? Who's to say? It might not be enough. Your party might keep going. And if that's the case, just keep going. Have your encounter set up. Have whatever you want to do, right? Or they come inside. Baby. Or Fungus is with them. And Fungus says, hey, man, yeah, inside here there is treasure. Have him warn them a bit. There is treasure. We've seen some gold, and we've seen a few weapons, but also this place has a lot of chaos, a lot of bad juju, and none of us are equipped to go in there and Indiana Jones the hell out of it. So there's danger, but there's also probably rewards. That's a nice also incentive. Just topple it up. Maybe the characters say, Fungus, we don't want to do that, and as they leave, they hear that voice, that calling. Well, what is that calling? You think it's something good? Not in this fucking campaign. Everything sucks. That's D&D, man. Everything just sucks all the time. So there is a call, and it's a plea for help. Where does it come from? Characters won't know this, but the plea is coming from a wraith that is hidden underneath this tomb, and it's a powerful a tomb of horror, maybe a tomb of annihilation, depending on how your characters go. Very much potentially, this is an incredibly dangerous situation. Somewhere deep down, a wraith is calling for help. It needs life energy to leave. Of course it's not going to say that. It's going to sound as desperate, as innocent as it can. Maybe it starts calling their names because this wraith is telepathic. It's not dumb. The lore of the story is that this tomb floated and existed outside of the Underdark. A paladin took on this evil witch, finally killed her, not entirely though, sealing her up in a tomb. To make sure that, she never gets out as a final safeguard outside of this tomb already being kind of, locked up to keep people from getting to her. There's a small invisible chest. Sealed within the very coffin that confines her is Dawnbringer, a beautiful, powerful weapon of divine magic, radiating fire. This weapon was the very weapon used to kill her in the first place, or at least trap her up. Now, if your characters get in there, open that bad boy up, ignite that blade, now you have a pretty awesome encounter where your characters feel awesome, and they immediately get to use their new toy, fighting this wraith, right? So that's kind of like the lore, and the characters get out. It's not much. You can see that there's only 4 rooms, but things do get a little difficult, right? In the first room, there's crazy carving showing the lore, right? Everything that I explained to you. Maybe you give the paladin a name. Maybe you give the witch a name. The book offers one. It's not important. It won't show up again. So do whatever you want to do. Maybe in one campaign or some homebrew, you guys briefly mentioned an NPC who was a powerful witch or a powerful, wizard. Maybe even a guy, an individual. Who cares? Whatever kind of monster. Maybe there's a loose end you want to clean up here. Take that individual. Pick some paladin, maybe even a player that from a previous campaign who is after her. Write that onto the walls. Have the walls tell that story. In the first room, there's really nothing going on. Except the torches are lit. Of course they're lit, because that's creepy. Why are they lit? Never answer that question. That's the fucking secret of Dungeons & Dragons. You never tell them why. They keep going down into room number 2, which is over here. There's a sacrificial chamber. That's not cool. Already giving you the kind of vibes. Ooh, I would love to see that in a second. What was I saying? A sacrificial chamber is a pretty good sign that wherever the hell you are, might not be a good place to be, right? This is also a good place to have some phasers show up. Always just stuff shit with phasers. One thing I like to do is on the sacrificial chamber, maybe one of your characters, as they kind of walk by, there's really nothing here. Maybe a gold dagger, +1 dagger, maybe some gold, lots of blood. As the characters leave, the last one to turn from the table sees their own corpse on the table. Just for a second. Have it be intense, quiet, no music. And then when they talk, the character turns around and it's gone. This is an awesome catalyst to have one of your very first bouts of madness show up. You can just put that anywhere. Oh, I see. So as I was saying, the Lost Tomb didn't exist in the Underdark. Now, it is the same realm, right? It's just really deep under the earth. Personally, the lore of the book is pretty interesting. Something happened where this went down. Literally, that it dug in. I like the idea that this temple of Kahim floated up in this divine kind of place. Now, it is bad, right? There's coffins, there's a torture chamber. Maybe, not only good guys have floating palaces. Have this thing up there, all of a sudden some kind of divination takes care of it, maybe even phasers. I like the idea that it was ancient and lying down here for a while. It fell out of the sky straight down into the earth, and here it sits miles below the surface. Maybe some sort of dimension door kind of affected the entire palace, right? Maybe it sucked it into the Underdark. Rainy says, I always homebrewed my own stuff, so the Abyss is different to the Underdark. Yeah, the Abyss is actually literally different from the Underdark. It is a bit kind of misleading because it's like out of the Abyss, right? And that's the Demigorgon. But he's in the Underdark. He comes from out of the Abyss, but the very first place that the Demon Lords will enter into our plane, our Earth, is in the Underdark because it is the closest kind of barrier. In a sense, the plane exists under the Underdark, but not in a topographical sense. It's hard to describe. So anyway, I'm gonna keep on going. Right, this first chance of madness, right? And maybe that sends your character scurrying out of there. I really like the idea that push them to leave, or maybe they don't find the secret room, which there is. No spoilers. I should just keep going, right? Room 3, there are servants, coffins. There's a trap here. There's some treasure, and I wrote bazinga. Why did I do that? Well, there are 4 coffins here. which belong to servants of this witch, this wraith, right? They were all buried in here, and they have seriously heavy coffins. Here's the thing, a perception check, a very difficult one, or depending on how your players, mumble about this room, they'll realize that one of the coffins is empty. It's incredibly light. You can say it's empty. But I wouldn't have it empty in the sense of the first thing your character's going to do is pop that thing open, look inside, there's nothing in there. It's empty because it's easy to move. It's light. If you can move the coffin, underneath is a kind of little stairway. Sorry about that. You can see the dots right here leading to room 5. It'll lead you to the real resting place of the wraith, right? The other tombs, though, the moment that they're opened, baby, you already know. You can throw in some, what are they called? They're like phantoms. They're called specters. Have the specters resurrect, and now they're fighting the specters in this really close room. You know what I'm going to say next, right? Sprinkle little phasers in this 20 by 10 or 30 by 20 room with 4 specters on each corner. What if you roll the wrong thing on the table and a fireball goes off? Now in this tight little area where our characters are cornered, you can have some really wild shit going on. After the characters would slay them or they run away, of course you can put in loot, right? Maybe a +1 weapon or whatever. I don't like to, I've done too much I was too generous with my players. I found that genuinely a good DM tip is not to kind of shoehorn all these +1 weapons. They're already gonna get a fucking lightsaber. You do not need to give them a +1 shield or a +1 whatever. Maybe 50 gold, maybe a few gems that they could barter for, maybe some exotic mushrooms, right? Maybe something cool. So there are the 4 sarcophagi, and they would fight the specters if they were to touch it, and then they get treasure. Underneath one of the sarcophagi is a hidden staircase. We're not going to go down those stairs yet. We're going to go to room number 4. Room number 4 is a huge, grand, beautiful coffin. You really play it up. Talk about it for 3 minutes straight, right? Nice description, everything. Characters will be like, oh, well, this must be this must be it, right? Obviously. So maybe they pry it open, which is a weird thing to do because they just fought, a bunch of people. But let's say they fight the specters and they're like, oh, this thing's evil. We need to get out of there. And as they're leaving, the voice says, no, please, I'm not evil. I'm trapped here with these evil things. And now they have this motivation like, oh, we have to save this damsel or this guy or whatever. Like in just this individual, we have to save him. There's specters and shit. So now they're, kind of falling for it. They go over to and their only real hint, besides, all the fucked up shit going on, is when they get to room number 4 and they get to this grand, tomb. They're going to open it, which is incredibly difficult, a 19 check for strength, and they're going to find a body. It's going to be literally the statue, this individual frozen in obsidian. There's no one in it. It was actually a ruse. As it opens up, you will literally hear a scream, and I'm going to read it out, all right? They will hear... You have disturbed the tomb of Bryces of Kahim. Accursed are you, most miserable of creatures. That's gonna boom throughout the entire vault. And it should, because there's a dexterity check or charisma. If not, they could be deafened for 24 hours. And pretty much they're placed on a curse of noise cancellation and some sort of, you can do whatever you want, any kind of curse that you feel would really affect your characters. The point is that they just got a warning for opening this tomb. They find out that the individual isn't in here, and maybe when they leave this room, they're like, please, I'm still here, I don't know what's going on, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So they eventually will figure out like, hey, maybe there is something going on, maybe this isn't a good person. Well, if they go to the 3rd room and they go into the secret staircase, they'll find a true tomb. This true tomb will not be fancy. It'll be wooden, barren, nothing. As a matter of fact, the way I would like to do it, have your characters enter, and it's so pitch black that by the time they light a torch, they have dark vision, whatever the hell. Maybe even put in some, you know what? Personally, put in darkness in there. Put in the spell darkness. So now your characters have really no good excuse on why they could see. By the time they get to the coffin, they realize it's already fucking open. And then they hear the voice. Bah! I am finally free, and I need enough life points to get back into my lich form. And the 4 of you, I'm always assuming there's 4 party members, are going to get me there. Right? She's going to try and kill them and take their life. Now you're fighting a wraith in a dark room. Not a great situation. Maybe the characters have dispel magic, maybe they don't. The point is, though, there's another voice calling. Now, I didn't mention this because I wanted to kind of spice up. This is how I kind of DM. I kind of just lie to you until something cool happens. There's a voice coming out of a box, and it belongs to a particular saber. The very chest, the very weapon that killed her, like I said, has its own personality. That's because the paladin put a piece of its soul into this blade to ensure that it could easily instruct everyone there. Now in this room of darkness, they hear a voice. Please, if you truly wish to banish this fuck, like, open this shit up. And they do. And they find a handle. They activate it. Darkness literally cut out. Make the entire room radiate with sunlight. This should be the first spark of hope that your characters get for probably in the next 10-15 sessions until they get out. The darkness is dispelled, and now you have a powerful weapon against this lich, or this banshee. Still a powerful opponent, but now, you know, with hope and with guidance, you kind of have a little bit more motivation, right? Eventually, they'll say this wraith. Take whatever treasure they have. They have this lightsaber who now has a personality. Maybe make them talkative. Do whatever you want with the personality. It should be a paladin, right? It should be whatever slayed this monster. So probably a good guy. Or you can do a whole like twist the fate. Maybe have them all be good guys and secretly you're killing someone. I didn't do that. I don't want to go too into it. That's wild. But now your characters have a sun sword, and that's badass. One of them does. Let them fight for it. The way I kind of picture the phasers is, instead of where you say, monsters can leak into that space, have the phasers be that space leaking into our reality. It's pure existence, just warping reality, doing whatever the fuck you want. In this very tomb, one of my characters turned into a potted plant due to, I think it was like casting some sort of fireball or firebolt at something. And I mean, that's the kind of reality bending you want to do. So your characters have a lightsaber. What next? Wow, I didn't mean to click on. That's fun though. I'll leave that there. Hook horror layer. Sorry guys, we're almost done. After these few encounters, these one shots, that'll basically be it. The hook horror layer. Here you'll have a bunch of gnoll hunters. What is a gnoll? What are you talking about? D&D. These are gnolls, hyena-based monsters. As a matter of fact, they're so hyenas that most of them started off as hyenas. Once a hyena eats from a very specific source, it could turn into a gnoll, a hyena man-beast that worships the demon lord Inagu. Let me show you what Inagu looks like. Inagu. This guy is so badass. I love him. Inagu is a demon lord that your party will eventually run into. So foreshadowing him here with these gnolls who already have obviously... Oh, I didn't tell you how he transforms. Whatever monster, beast, whatever flesh Inagu slains, if a hyena, a normal hyena, were to eat from it, they will automatically transform into a gnoll who will forever serve him. So what happens in this layer? Why am I bringing this up? Well, a bunch of gnolls are going around in madness, hunting on things, right? So what they see here, this is how I would have your characters do it. They walk into this, this kind of, again, everything's caves. So maybe your characters don't even necessarily think that they're walking into a sort of like, not a scripted event, but an event in general. They see hook horrors. I already mentioned hook horrors have these hooked hands, and they see two of them, boosh, swing across. That would be right here, right? They see them right here, swing across from south to north. You're like, what the hell was that? Hook horrors. And then you hear it. For Inagu, we must kill them for Inagu. Now you have a band of 12 gnoll hunters rushing on after them. Maybe one of the hunters, just like the Spectre who was following the Beholder earlier, takes a gander to the left and sees your party. And now they say, for Inagu! And all the gnolls turn and they begin to hunt the players. What this entire scene is, it's a twisting mound of left and rights where a bunch of gnolls, not just this party, but several parties of gnolls in groups of 12 to 10 are hunting hook horrors. Specifically because they know that hook horrors taste good. But even more specifically is that a hook horror egg can taste even better. So somewhere in this pit, wherever you want, I like it right here. I had a cavern where the hook horrors eventually, who are trying to escape these hunters, they're not trying to fight right now. They're in parent mode. They're trying to swing around and U-turn their way back into their lair. Back in the lair, they might become frenzied and they might fight like crazy. Maybe, maybe the gnolls kill one. Maybe your party kills one. On its last turn, even if the gnoll straight up died, leave it at 1 hit point. have it escape up a wall, even, you know, surviving a reactionary attack, and kind of up a wall into this little cupboard. Your party might follow it. Maybe they don't. Have some sounds coming from it. If your party does follow it, they found the hook horror, have that last bout of combat happen, they kill it. They see that this cavern goes a little bit further and there's a nice little light. And what's that? Well, your party can run into a hook horror egg. An egg that belongs to this thing. The cool thing about this egg is that it could break open whenever you want, right? You can roll for it or you can have it be scripted. I like to do, you know, it's up to you. Whenever, maybe have the party carry it for a couple of sessions trying to protect the crap out of it. Oh yeah, baby. Hell yeah. Specifically the egg. Because once they, and they're gonna feel like shit. They're gonna be like, oh my god, we just Batman the shit out of this hook horror. But they run out, they get it, they protect it. They know what's gonna happen. Same thing that happens in every egg in Dungeons and Dragons. If you have an egg that's left alone and it belongs to a creature, and the first thing it doesn't do is pair with the party and pretend it's like fucking mama, land before time shit, Littlefoot. Baby, that's not Dungeons and Dragons at all. Get the hell out of here. You know that when this hook horde is gonna break out. Fuck, I'm sorry, I should stop talking. Once this hook horde is born, it's gonna pair itself with a party, and now they have a baby hook horde. A dangerous monster, but depending on how, you know, animal handling, blah, blah, blah. Now they have to feed it, right? Now it's, you know, what if they're crossing the silken paths of webs and this hook horde is like, hey man, I'm gonna go far, you know, they see a spectator. Maybe this hook horde begins to chase it, right? It's an adolescent. It doesn't know what, it's a baby, right? So now they have to take care of it. Do they bring it into cities? Or do people let it bring it into cities? Whole bunch of role-playing incentives. But the best part is your party now has a pet, and this pet can grow up to be a pretty awesome NPC, fully fledged hook horror. I tried this before and our party really liked it. Starlord Special says I was excited for the egg because it was pretty fun. We actually ended a campaign there for a second. Vacations, jobs and stuff. I had to start Out of the Abyss a second time, and that's when I finally finished it. So I do have a pretty good amount of insight. But yeah, the whole goal is for them to have Yunagu be, you know, name dropped. Maybe the characters go up to society, hey, what the hell is this Yunago? And they're like, fuck, dude, this guy's terrifying. He's like all the hyenas in Lion King put to one, right? Or Scar, I guess I should have said. And then they get a pet, potentially. So that's basically that. So I'm going to go into the chat really quick. I'm going to go back to the chat. Blinking Gaming says, not the egg. Yes, the egg. Sarler says, I was excited. Blinking says, but what if I want the egg to birth a face-eating parasite type monster? You probably don't want that egg to be in the hook horror area, but you know what you can do? You can literally have the Phaserus, right? Let's say that there are 3 eggs. You have to show that there's a difference. Because obviously if there's just one egg there, you got to have something to compare it to. Maybe when the characters walk up to the nest, there's 3 eggs. One of them cracks, breaks open, a baby hook horror comes out. The problem with this means several eggs, meaning several babies, right? Maybe it comes out, maybe something happens, a rock falls on it and you just kill it right there because you don't want your characters to have 3 monster pets, right? But you need something to compare them to, because one of the egg could have just a halo, a beautiful halo of Phaserus that lingers above it. Maybe it was infused with Phaserus. Whatever the fuck births from that egg could totally be a eating parasite type monster. You can have it be a hook horror with 1,000,000 hands and 2 heads and tentacles, and slowly you build a demigorgon up. I love it. Phasers is the best tip I can give you. Phasers is your excuse to do whatever the fuck they want. Last but not least, the last encounter that the book gives you is the Oozing Temple. This is pretty cool. I missed this. I didn't DM this at all, so this is actually, I'm like, what the fuck? I know it. Oh no, my protection's expired. It's the hook horrors coming to get me. That's a good time to talk about my sponsor, NordVPN. I'm just kidding. I have $7 in my bank account. So if you guys follow me, that would be incredibly helpful. Not in terms of money, but just like, oh, $7 and 1 new follower, baby. So the Oozing Temple, what is this about? So eventually your characters will be wandering about left and right, and then a tremor happens. This doesn't have to happen. Your characters can walk into this normally. I like to force my characters to do things because I'm not a good DM, right? Tremors are popping up, breaking stuff. It could be a giant worm, it could be the Demigorgon, it could be whatever the fuck you want. Honest to God, earthquakes are substantial enough in the Underdark. Have an earthquake come out, and now your characters are stuck, right? The reason that that was a joke about forcing your characters. The tremors are actually incredibly important for this specific situation, and you'll see why in a bit. So eventually tremors kind of have them cave in with only one way to go, and that's how they enter this area, right? They have to get out of here. So they keep coming out, like fill in, you know, stuff with whatever you want. But the first thing that has to happen is in this room with this little boy, room number 1, you have slime boys. What? You have any sort of purple, blue, green ooze kind of living in this area, and they start attacking the players. Now the players have to go straight because we're not gonna burrow. Baby, $7 and 1 extra follower. Yes, I am eating good tonight, baby. I'm gonna get right back into this boy, right? Ooze. Why do you have green ooze? Why do you have blue ooze? This also foreshadows something. This isn't just an encounter with slime or ooze and just for shits and giggles, right? You can have encounters like that. Maybe they fight a minotaur. Maybe they do this. Something a bit random that has nothing to do with the content. This does. As a matter of fact, one of the demon lords is made of slime, and his name is Jubilex. All of these demon lords that I'm popping up, they will show up in my campaign. They are referenced, they're kind of like name dropped. I think only 3 or 4 of the demons show up. All the demons that I like, or all the demons that I mentioned, I did put in. I either homebrew my way in, and if you follow my campaign, my video, my stream, you'll see how you can put them all in naturally. Jubilex is so cool. He's like a lord of shapeless things, the demon with a million faces, right? Just made of ooze. So the reason this temple is here is because it foreshadows something is resurrecting on this plane that's making goo and slime become more sentient and more active. I didn't say more dangerous. And why didn't I say more dangerous? That's because in the next room, you will find someone named Glaba Ghoul, the mother boss baby. You will literally find a slime who has just recently been born. The mere presence of Jubilex, somewhere a couple 100 miles away, being, you know, walking around, being summoned from the abyss, is just sending the shockwave and awakening slime all over. And this slime, it was just born, and his name is Jubilex. And he is a blue slime, and you can play him as anything you want. I don't want him to be an enemy. Glaba Ghoul is such a fun NPC because it's a slime that is a good guy. He has no idea what's right and wrong. He needs to be taught all of that. And now you have an opportunity to have a character who, and again, you need to roleplay him as a newborn, not an idiot, you know, not a literal boss baby. To be fair, the boss baby character in the movie Boss Baby isn't an idiot, but you want to play as someone innocent, someone who doesn't know what's going on, and you should really nail that. That's an important factor, not just for role playing, but because now you have a slime that says, "Hey, you know, I literally was just this slime, nothing, and something brought me here." And maybe he shares the first thing he saw in existence: a sea of slime and sludge with a million eyes, growing with more tendrils, just dipping and taking and piercing the earth, with more and more slime being summoned out of him every second. This slime is looking for flesh because it is hungry. That might be the only drop you need to give him. Don't even name drop Jubilex. Just this faceless beast, this abomination. Your players are going to think, that's probably bad. That's probably real bad. And eventually when they get to Blinding Stone, where the were-rat situation is going on, they're going to find a pool of pudding and the very first instances of Jubilex's very being. And this is a great foreshadow for that. As a matter of fact, if you can get Glaba Ghoul all the way to Blinding Stone, you have a very interesting situation where the slime that you've raised, Glaba Ghoul, but let's say your characters raise this slime for about 15 sessions. It takes a while because you want to go through all these different towns and stuff. And it finally comes face to face with an avatar of Jubilex. You can literally have, I don't know if any of you guys have played The Walking Dead, but there's a time where, depending on how your characters kind of treated Clementine, who's this childlike figure, Clementine can make a decision on their own based on the decisions you've made. And that could seriously vary. So when you have this baby slime meet Jubilex for the first time, depending on how you guys raise them, this is an awesome time to put all of that effort your party put into the slime and show it off. Maybe the slime is like, yeah, you know what? My party does look good. Or maybe you have slime, this infant of nothing, stand face to face with not its father, but a god, a literal demon lord, and say, no, I don't want to be a part of this. And that's beautiful. That could be such a powerful moment, especially since you didn't do anything. This is all the payoff, the pinnacle of your party's work and its moral value. Maybe depending on what it says to him. Maybe it'll throw in slang that the party says all the time, right? That could be really cool. Maybe Jubilix kills him on the spot. Maybe Jubilix absorbs him anyway. You know, give the players a good incentive to hate Jubilix. But that could be a very powerful moment. And the cool thing is, you can do that in session 4. And then you just sit on it, you wait, and you invest, and eventually that payoff, baby, that's amazing. Now, I didn't do that, but I wish I could. So eventually your characters will keep going, and there is a lot of, like, you know, you can really fill this up with whatever you want. There's treasure, there's a dining room table. It's nothing entirely fascinating. The descriptions are about a few sentences. Eventually, they'll get to this area. Now, what is this? What is this that my cursor is going? It's 4 really tight hallways. Now, the book says that, yeah, a character can fit through it. Oh, Star-Lord special. You have no idea about the Fungus Queen. So I like the idea that as the characters are going, they need to, they can either turn right into this area with water, right? And the whole time that your characters are going through this, have these tremors getting worse, right? Just like shaking stuff. Maybe it makes the terrain, maybe for 5 minutes it shakes. That's not a lot of time in role-playing, but in a combat, that's a couple thousands of turns, right? Difficult terrain due to these tremors. Have that be a part of it. The reason is because here, where there's this water, your players, this is unbeknownst to them, going to be their way out. As there's tremors going, water is starting to shoot out and leaking from somewhere. And right now there's a good, like, maybe foot of water, right? Not too much. But as the tremors get worse, or obviously the water will rise up. Do your characters want to stay here, figure something out, or do they want to go further in and hope there isn't a dead end? Well, spoiler alert, there is a dead end. Let's say they took the dead end route, right? So they go in here, and in this little area, this hallway, it becomes very tight. I like the idea that the characters have to turn. Maybe even large creatures have even harder time going through these slits. And as they're kind of squeezing through, they're trying to get through the other end. This is some Tomb Raider. In Last of Us, this is where you hide the loading screen. Everyone's like, there's no loading screens. There are. All those animations are loading screens. Rant over. Right? They're moving through, and then they're thinking, man, whatever happened to Jorlan? That guy where the black pudding ate half his face? I wonder what he's doing. I wonder if your characters make fun of him. Because while they're sliding left and right, it's so tight that their players literally can't be in any sort of formation besides being, 2D. The floor beneath them cracks open. Have a dexterity saving throw. And if they fail, they fall into a little tightest pit in the world, with a black goo just sitting right underneath. And now your characters are in this tough position where there's a black goo. It's difficult to climb back up, but honestly, that's what they're going to want to do, because the next player that's behind them, that's probably the only player that could get in and help them. What if they all took separate routes, and now they're alone, one-on-one on this black goo in this tight spot? Not a good idea. Make it pretty harsh, right? Eventually, they kill these black goo, but there's nothing more to that. They kill the black goo, they get out, and they head on over. And this little area is really cool, right? As they approach, terrain's getting worse. It's shaking like crazy. Now there's water kind of spurting out, and they have no idea, but back in that pool where they saw, now it's about 6 foot of water kind of making this divot. They have no idea that they've walked into a dead end with 4 statues. What the hell? 4 statues. In the center, they all have some sort of jewelry, maybe some sort of +1 weapons, whatever, right? Have your reward. Nothing fancy. I'll let you guys know if there's another fucking lightsaber in here, but right now the rewards are kind of just like whatever. Spells, maybe something for, maybe 1 potion of water breathing, right? Just to kind of lessen the hit that they're about to take in a little bit. These 4 statues, what the hell are they? Just marble, weird, kind of like strange looking statues. Well, at the feet of them is whatever reward you want to put them. As they touch the foot of the stone, they realize, oh my god, this isn't stone at all. It is silver slime or marble slime that had been put in a stasis as a trap. The moment they touch it, it comes on in. Shouldn't say that when I'm talking about silver slime and white slime to life. And now your characters are fighting in this dead end 4 statues that came to life out of their stasis as a sort of safeguard. And the trembling is getting worse, and maybe halfway before they kill the very last slime, water's starting to seep into here. If water's starting to seep into here, that's not a good idea. It is a race to defeat this guy, get whatever the rewards they want, get back, squeeze on through, avoid the black pudding if they didn't kill it, and they get into this area. Now the water is kind of up to their waist. So here's what you do. The characters look up and they see, holy hell, there's a ceiling and we're gonna drown, right? But, you know, put some context clues, some insight checks, some history checks. Your players are probably smarter than me. So let's see, well, damn, the water's coming from somewhere. Maybe if we can just, you know, break our way through the wall or make these treasures worse, you know, maybe we can get our way out. Right? Maybe the slime, maybe Gabagool wants to get out of here, and he says, well, why the fuck don't we just swim on up and figure out a way out? And so the characters will be like, well, we need a place to swim. They attack the walls, they do whatever, they hocus pocus their way, make a bang, the water floods in, the characters get kind of thrown about a little bit, but eventually they find that this water just leads into a chasm, they'll swim their way out, and they'll be out and back into your world. And that is the final one shot. Now, as I said earlier, I recommend, oops, I'll show you that in a second. I recommend putting these one-shots in between cities, right? So on their way to Shloop-de-Loop, do the Silken Road, and then maybe if they save Fungus, Fungus shows them where that temple with the lightsaber is. And maybe they could do that in the same, on their same, honestly, I would save it. Maybe have it be on their way to another place. It'd be like, hey, here's actually this temple's far away. It's near the Dark Lake, which the characters won't be at until they get to Shloop-de-Loop, which is the first town that Susher should be, you know, leading them to, right? Keep in mind, this entire time they go through these one-shots, they have those NPCs. They're not going to just sit still. The Underdark sucks. If they want to leave the players outside the, you know, the tomb walls, fuck knows if they'll come back and see them again, right? So they make their way to Koatoa. They know that there's this temple, and so as they escape Shloop-de-Loop due to the Demigorgon rising up, and they say, oh, well, let's go. We still have Sereth, and he wants to go to Blinding Stone. He keeps talking about Blinding Stone. Fine, let's go there. And on the way to Blinding Stone, they say, hey, we're going to pass that temple, and now you have the one shot in between the session. I like to do like gameplay in between, like maybe 2 one-shots in between a 30-day, one shot in between a week's travel. And then you don't even have to do a one-shot, you can do whatever you want. I did a whole thing with a vampire heart, in the sand, crazy stuff, right? So that's the kind of goal. Chapter 2, all these things I talked about, throw them in between when your party's traveling from city to city. And that's about it. Now, that's basically how the campaign wants you to send it. Now I'm going to talk Twitch exclusive only on here. I'm going to tell you exactly a lot of our stories. What chapter 3 is Shloop-de-Loop, which is awesome. This is the area where your characters will come face to face, just feet away from their first demon lord, and not only the demon lord, not only some guy out there, the prince of all of them, the Demigorgon. He's on the cover, and he's going to be in our next stream. I'll tell you how to handle that, how to do his introduction. I'll actually do some scripting DMD stuff where I'll read out exactly what I read out back then so many years ago to kind of set the mood so you guys can get a good idea of what it looks like. Thank you so much. Follow my YouTube. It's just the same thing, TankTopDM. Send me your ideas, and if you could follow, that'd be awesome. Thank you guys so much. I will see you another time. See ya!